Hey everybody, Rory Cummins here with Building Wealth with Real Estate. Today we're going to be talking about contractors. If you've dealt with contractors before, you know this can be super painful. I can tell you in my own life, I have learned literally over 20 plus years everything there is to know about working with contractors, finding good contractors, how to deal with them, how to communicate with them, the whole bit. I get asked all the time, hey Rory, where can I find good contractors, or do you have any good contractors that you recommend? This is a question that is something that I take to heart. I am a contractor. I started off in contracting when I was young, as early as 15 years old, and eventually got into project management and supervision of job sites. So I'm now a general contractor, and I have been for many, many years. And I have dealt with thousands of vendors, thousands of subcontractors. So I just wanted to shoot this video out there for you guys just to kind of give you more insight into the contracting world and things that you need to think about. A lot of people, typically just either ask a family or friend, who do you use for this? They call them up, they're done, right? They just hire whoever it is. Or they go straight to Google and maybe they use that. And the first person that comes up, they hire them. Or it could be that they interview 3 people and they go with that lowest price contractor that came out and bid the work because they feel like that's the number one thing that's important. So let me dig into this. There are 4 levers when it comes to contractors, and you're never going to get all 4 across the board. The 4 are price, quality, speed, and communication. Anytime you have those 4 levers getting pulled, you can never have all 4 of them, in a row. And if you did, they're never going to be available. They're going to be 3 or 4 months out. Maybe that's okay. But in my experience, I have yet to find somebody that can match all 4 of those parameters, right? So let's talk about price. Price is obviously important, but it does not need to be the only thing. A lot of contractors are not worth their salt, yet they still charge a huge exorbitant fee or quote for their services. As an example, maybe they're the fix-it plumber or something like that can get to you within 2 hours or something like that, and they're just going to quote the highest price because they know you might need their assistance right off the bat, right? So that is price. I always tell people, don't go with the lowest price unless you've really vetted them out, meaning you've worked with them before, or somebody really vouches for the quality of their work, or they have a ton of reviews that are out there visibly online. Like when I mean a lot, I mean, more than 25 reviews online, right? The people that have 3 reviews online is probably just their family and friends that left those reviews. So the next one is quality. When it comes to quality, you do get what you pay for, so just keep that in mind. It's okay to have a fair price, but typically the lowest price contractor is probably not going to be the best quality because they can't afford the labor. This is probably why they have to bid the job to get it lower than everybody else because their quality is subpar. So always remember that. If quality matters to you, if they're coming out to dig a hole, I get it. It's not a big deal. But if they're doing tile work, if they're doing drywall work, if they're doing carpentry, the things that really matter, things that are going to dictate the quality of everything that comes behind it, right? Like a poor carpenter is going to lead to a bad cabinet job because your walls are going to be all out of whack. Same with the tile. The tile guy has to come behind the guy that screwed the walls up. So always remember, quality does matter, and it especially matters in certain trades. Speed is another one. If you're not super focused on speed, then it's going to open up a whole nother world to you because the best contractors are typically going to need 1 to 2 weeks notice at minimum. The really good contractors might be 3 to 4 weeks out or even 3 months out. So if you're not hung up on speed, it's really going to open you up to a better price and a better quality contractor. And then last but not least is my most important one is communication. I always say that if I can't communicate with a contractor, they're pretty much dead to me. I don't want to work with them. I don't care how good they are. They're the best tile guy or the best drywaller or the best carpenter. It doesn't matter. Because if you can't communicate with them, you can't tell them what you want, you can't call them up and find out what time they're coming, or if they don't communicate well, they're not even going to tell you when they don't show up. And if they are a dependent sub, as an example, maybe they're your cabinet guy, you've got granite or quartz or something getting measured the very next day, right? If your cabinet guy doesn't show up to do the job, you don't know whether to cancel the next guy or not because they haven't called you. It's completely unreliable. I have to have good communication. If I don't have good communication, I just won't work with somebody. So that is, to me, the most important one. The next most important one to me is, of course, quality and availability or speed at which they work. And then last for me is price. I will typically get multiple quotes, which I recommend doing. Usually I do it in a tiered system. If the job is less than a few $100 and you get it seems like you've got a good quality person and they can communicate well, maybe they have decent quality from their reviews and they give you a decent price that's in your budget under $500, just hire them. Don't waste your time getting 5 quotes. But if the job, let's say you're remodeling and it's a $10,000 job, that's probably going to dictate 3 or 4 quotes from contractors. And you should already kind of know what, probably what that job needs to go for. I mean, if you get 4 quotes, just take the average or the middle number. That's pretty much where the industry is probably at. Now, if it's a $50,000 job, right, like maybe you need to frame a house, right? You're hiring the guys to come out and build the house for you. That's a huge number, depending on the size of the house. But if you have a big job like that, maybe it's worth getting 5 or 6 quotes, right? It's amazing if you take, new construction, for instance, you've got 200 trades that you're paying. If you just saved $1,000 per trade, that's 200,000. Let's see, yeah, is that 200,000? Yeah, it's a lot of money. So you just want to think about, if you have a big job, the more quotes you get, the better. You just don't want to exhaust yourself on the small stuff, right? Especially if you know you're getting somebody of quality that's going to show up and you can communicate with them. Don't kill yourself over price. Budget's important, but just got to be realistic. So here's some ways in which I go out and find good contractors. I test them. When you're getting those quotes, you're basically interviewing them, right? You called them. Did they answer? Was it easy to communicate with them when they did answer? Did they seem pushy? Did they have a hard time communicating? Because obviously, like if they don't speak your language very well, and it's going to be a relatively complex job that's going to involve parts and pieces of the job, that's going to be a challenge. So as you're going through the process with them on the phone, did they call you back? Sometimes it's great to be leaving voicemails or shoot them an email to their office. Was the contractor timely in getting back to you? If you have to call more than twice to get them on the phone, I would just move on to the next contractor. If that's, you might be in a small town, so I get it. Sometimes you always have to just, go with who you can. But at the end of the day, if they don't call you back after 2 or 3 attempts, I would just write them off and go to the next person because you're going to get more of that when you finally hire them. So just keep that in mind. Another one would be getting them out to see the job. So I love doing this. Obviously, it takes time, so you want to batch your contractors. A lot of people think it's weird to, have, let's say, 2 sheetrockers show up at the job to quote it at the same time. I get that. Maybe have the tile guy and the sheetrock show up at 11 to 11:30, and then have the plumber and so show up between 11:30 and 12. And then the next day, maybe do it again with the same trades in the same time slots, maybe so they're not there at the exact same time. But it is easier to batch all these people together in 1 hour or 2, so you can get a lot more done. But having them out in the field is great because you get to see what they drive. And I'm not saying they have to have some super fancy truck, but if they show up in something that is beat up really bad, it might be a sign that they're either disorganized with their business, or they don't care about their appearance and maybe they don't care about the quality of their work. That is not really a test that I give every contractor because, if it's a framer or a mason or something, their truck's going to get, pretty dirty, right? But if it's a cabinet guy, that's a pretty clean trade. I would expect that they probably have an organized truck or they keep it clean or whatever. So that's one thing. The other thing is, did they show up on time? Hey, can you meet me at such and such time? Great. Did you remind them to come or not? Did they still forget the appointment, or did they show up late? Did they seem to care when they did? It speaks a lot to their character. So again, if this is a one-off job and something super small, I wouldn't worry about some of this stuff. But if you're trying to form relationships with people and build your team of people that you're going to use for new construction or remodeling or flips or whatever it is you're doing in the industry, these are important things. Another thing is, did they follow up on the quote that they gave you? And was it easy to work with them when they were on site? Did they ask good questions? Did they not ask any questions and they just quickly gave you a quote? Did they badmouth the competition? That's usually a sign that they're not high quality. They're just trying to undercut their competition to steal a job from somebody else. So to me, that's a little ethical. People that are worth their salt usually don't have to do that. They know that their quality stands for what they have. They have good reviews. So again, this is stuff that matters. And then, like I said, did they follow up with a quote in a timely manner? Ask them when you can expect it back. That's an important thing to ask contractors. Hey, when can you get back to me with the quote? Cool. Did they get back automatically, or did you have to follow up? And when you did follow up, did they follow up? So these are just ways that I try to eliminate what I call the B or C players versus the A players. I like to run with A players. I like to work with people that call me back, show up on time, do quality work. And the thing that when you find those people is that they're usually not available at the drop of a hat. You have to give them lead time. But if you run your schedule out, which is purposes for a whole nother video, it's a lot easier to keep these trades to your job. So in other words, like if you give them a 2 or 3 week lead time and you adjust your schedule accordingly and make sure your job's ready when they show, they're going to love you. They're going to show up. You pay them well. You have a contractor for life, basically. So don't eliminate somebody just because they're 3 weeks away. Just do a better job at trying to manage your schedule with good contractors so that they show up when they're supposed to show up and you've given them plenty of lead time. I want to talk about deposits really quick too. A lot of contractors always want this deposit up front. As long as it's reasonable and there's a reason that they need it, I'm okay with it. But for the most part, I'm not okay with it. Some contractors, if they have to order a lot of material for your job, especially if it's custom material, right? Like you're ordering specific siding color for your house. That's a lot of material and a lot of money that they're going to shell out. And maybe it's the first time they've worked with you and they don't know you and they want to make sure that they're not putting out money that they may not get back in reimbursement. So that I understand. If you do that and you haven't worked with them before, make sure that somebody can vouch for them or that they have a ton of reviews online, right? When I mean a ton, again, it's in excess of 25 4 to 5 star reviews would be what I'd be looking for, let's say on Google reviews. For the contractors that just want a small deposit of 10%, I usually don't sweat that. That might be their policy. But I get really leery when it's 30 to 50% to a contractor that should be able to float some of the basic materials. And it just seems unusual that they want some high deposit. That is where I have to go a little bit deeper with them. I have to have a conversation. And if they don't give me a good answer of why they need that much money, I'm probably not going to do it. And I'm just say, look, I'm going to give you 10% of that or none of that until you show up. Or maybe I'll give you the deposit the day that the materials drop on my job. That's another thing too. You don't want to give a deposit until that material is like, you just don't want to get ahead of your contractor. You basically want to always have some leverage, as you're going through the world of contracting. It's just the way it is. You never want to pay in full ever, ever, ever until they're 100% done. So even if, they give you that final 25% bill, but they're less than 5 or 10% being done, give them 15% and you tell them you'll give them that last 5 or 10% when they're 100% complete. Sorry, this is just, trust me, I've learned the hard way. You probably have learned this as well. It's just a good reminder. As far as timing and expectations, when you're going through the process of trying to find contractors to use, just be mindful of timing and have that conversation up front with them. Hey, I need you for this job. How many days is it going to take you? How many days until you can start? And then once you start, how many realistic days do you need? Let's say they need 5 days to do the job. You say, okay, cool. If I give you 7 or 8 days, and you're not done by then, what happens at that point? I know some people will actually hold back money, or they'll actually back charge the contractor for every day they go over their expected time. That's usually done in bigger jobs. I get that. Like it's, if you're coming out for a kitchen remodel, it's not something you're probably going to employ. However, if you're building a neighborhood and you've got a contractor that's going to be doing several jobs for you, and you say, look, I'm going to give you X amount of days per house, and for every day that you go over, after I give you this generous amount of time, now you're causing me money to carry the job costs and the carry costs of the loan costs. I'm going to charge you, 50 or $100 a day for every day you go over. This is a conversation you need to have, and you probably need to get something in writing if you go down this path. But it is very important to talk about timing expectations before you start with somebody. And then lastly, I want to talk about where to find contractors. Google is not a bad place, but just remember that the sponsored ads that show up and people that show up in the first 2 or 3 spots spent a lot of marketing money to get to that place. Doesn't mean they're not good companies. It just means that chances are their bid to you is going to be higher because they need to afford to be in those top spots. So just remember, like 20, 30, or 40% of their quote is probably going to the marketing to stay on top, not necessarily for the work that's being done. So I usually try to go to page, the bottom of page 1 or the second page of Google, and I look for, I actually read the reviews that people left, and I look at quantity when I'm doing that. The only time I usually do that, though, is if I'm going into a market I don't know. If you're in your existing city or town, word of mouth is great because you're asking friends, family, and coworkers who they've used with success in the past. Totally fair. The other thing is you can obviously ask your contractors that are already working with you. Contractors that you like and that you currently use. Let's say you have a cleaner. Your cleaner probably knows a good handyman. Your handyman probably knows a good plumber. The plumber definitely knows an electrician. A lot of these people show up on the same jobs all the time and they form relationships. And the clients that pay them probably also pay these other trades that are in that same industry. So that is usually the source I go to first, is I try to use any existing contractor I have and ask them for a referral of who they think is good. And then I'll also hit up my friends and family or other colleagues on who they might recommend. And then lastly, if you don't just go to Google, you can also go to forums. Forums can be a great resource in that town or city. As an example, in the real estate world, I will go to, let's say, the Facebook group of investors for whatever city I'm in. And I'll say, hey guys, new to the town here, we just bought a rental. Who do you recommend for electricity or HVAC or plumbing or whatever, right? You can also go to Bigger Pockets. That's another source, let's say, for investing. If it is staging, as an example, you're trying to find staging for a house, reach out to a realtor forum or contact a realtor in those markets or many realtors and say, hey, who's the best staging in town? So you just got to think about who associates with who, and then try to go into those little pockets of where those people are, and then just ask them, because they're a great resource. They're already in the industry. They've already been using these trades for many years. And again, once you get in with one, then you can actually ask that contractor for who they use for these other areas that you need services for. So hopefully this video helps. I could actually go on for a lot. I realize I probably need to split this kind of a video up into different segments, because I could go on forever. But again, speaking from experience, having hired and worked with thousands of subcontractors over the years, of 250 plus homes, I can tell you this is a great way to go about it. And you don't want to rush the process, because everybody lives with regret when they had the bad contractor that took weeks or even months longer to take care of something than was hoped. So always vet your contractors. Give them a test run, hopefully on a smaller job if you can, before you commit to something big. I know that's not always feasible, but if you can do that, you're going to be coming out ahead. So hope you guys like this video. If you loved it and you want more, please subscribe. If you have questions or want to leave a comment, please do. I'll try to get back to everything that everybody leaves me. And hope to see you on the next video. See ya.